Welcome to the Dog Boy Sports and Stocks podcast. And today we're going to talk about NIL, which is a popular topic to talk about these days. And I'm going to put things in perspective, a little bit about the system right now and kind of where things are going as far as the NIL world and the state of college sports today, really. So I want to talk some numbers and some dollars. And some of these numbers may actually shock you when you hear some of them. But they're real numbers, and I figured I would share them with you and kind of let you know how much college sports has changed. So this year in 2025, college athletes collectively will earn over $1 billion through NIL, name, image, and likeness deals. More specifically, this year there are 3,120 athletes that will earn over $100,000 in NIL deals. This is the shocking thing. The top 100 paid college athletes will earn an average of more than $583,000 this year. Let me say that again. The top 100 college athletes will earn on average $583,000 this year. And we're still calling these athletes college athletes. To me, they're professional athletes. They're getting a lot of money. So what's better than an NIL deal for six figures? Well, how about an NIL deal that you don't pay state income tax on? That's state income tax free. Well, the state of Arkansas just set a precedent last month that is bound to change decision-making for a lot of these college athletes as far as where they're going to school based on NIL. And what it's about is under the recently passed Arkansas Student Athlete Publicity Rights Act, a student athlete in the state of Arkansas will no longer be subject to state tax on NIL income. The bill was signed into law last month by Arkansas Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders, and I'll read to you exactly how the legislation is. And I'm going to quote this. Income received by a student athlete from an institution of higher education as compensation for the use of his or her name, image, or likeness is exempt from state income tax. Arkansas is the first state to pass this type of relief, of tax relief. Now, to stay competitive with this, Georgia, Alabama, Illinois, and Louisiana are all trying to follow Arkansas now with passing some type of NIL exemption legislation. The top income tax rate right now in Arkansas is 3.9%. So that means that athletes won't have to pay that 3.9%, and they're going to save many thousands of dollars, the highest earning athletes in Arkansas. And what it also means is that a lot of these athletes may choose to go to Arkansas versus another school that has or state that has an income tax just based upon this law that just passed. Now, it's all done for competitive reasons. So what this does, as I said, is it allows Arkansas schools to better compete, in particular, with the other teams in the SEC for recruits in other states. There's 3 states in the SEC that have no state income tax. So you have Texas, which has the University of Texas and Texas A&M. You've got Tennessee, which has Vanderbilt and the University of Tennessee. And you've got Florida, which has the University of Florida in the SEC. Those states have no state income tax. So this law that Arkansas passed is really done to compete for recruits with those particular schools. Now, I'll just throw it in here. The other states with no state income tax are Alaska, Nevada, South Dakota, Washington, and Wyoming. Now, NIL income is considered earned income, and it is subject to federal taxation besides state tax, if there's a state tax in that state. Now, you could look at it this way. The income for NIL is taxed the same exact way that, let's say, a barista at Starbucks would earn money or a corporate executive would earn money. It's taxed the same way Granted that a corporate executive would be taxed at a higher federal level, but it's taxed the same way. The top tax rate federally is 37% in 2025. So while they still face the tax at the federal level, these athletes, they won't be paying the state tax in Arkansas, and they'll take home more money. That's the bottom line. Now, on the other hand, there are states that have extremely high state income taxes, as high as 13.3%. So the highest is California, 13.3. Then the second highest is Hawaii at 11, New Jersey at 10.75, Oregon at 9.9%, and Minnesota at 9.85%. So those are the five highest states with state income taxes. Now, there's two sides to this as far as this Arkansas legislation, as far as people are having a problem with it, and some people like it, but why should these states tax the NIL income? Well, a lot of people think that they should tax it because everybody else in the state that works has to pay tax. I mean, that's fair, right? It's only, to me, it's critical that you have some kind of fairness in your taxation system. By exempting these athletes who are making a lot of money, and they're also young, a lot of the people in Arkansas are not okay with that. However, states may not want to tax the NIL income for a couple reasons. So the obvious reason is competitive reason. So the schools in a few of these states that don't have the state income tax have a financial advantage in recruiting over schools where there is a state income tax. I mean, that's the way it is. The players keep more money in a state with no state income tax. So that's one obvious reason. The second reason is the cost of taxing these athletes and these student athletes may not outweigh the benefits. So I'll tell you what I mean by that. So many of the states tax at reasonable levels or fairly low levels. So a state like North Carolina, for example, they may only be missing out on, let's say, $8 or $9 million per year in tax revenue on these NIL dollars that the players in that state get. However, what it could do is it could make it so your teams in your state are more competitive. More competitive could mean additional revenue for your state. And I'll give you an example. So Ohio State, in a state that has a state income tax, made the college playoffs in football last year. And it was reported that one college football game in Columbus brought in $12 million to the community. Just that one game. So the question is, the tax revenue that they would receive on taxing NIL, would it outweigh the $12 million in additional state revenues that they receive from that game because they have such a successful team and they have the ability and the means to bring in the best players? So there's a couple reasons that it could be good to do this, and there's some people that push back and say it's not good because it's not fair. What I'm thinking about now is, okay, if you go by the way that you say that the financial benefits from a successful team are beneficial to the state and to the communities locally, at some point could we see pro athletes' earnings exempt from state income taxes for the same reason, that they generate interest and income to the communities in the states because they're successful franchises? You could kind of make the argument that the same thing would be for the pro teams. You know, a team like the Cleveland Browns in a state like Ohio, that's a higher tax state that has a very loyal fan base and has a lot of people that come to games and stuff. And the Washington Commanders would be another one that would come to mind to me. So the one thing I'll say, as far as this decision for players, you know, do I go to a state or a school in a state that has no state income tax versus maybe a school that I like better that has a state income tax? When I was an agent represent players, I always weighed free agent offers with the different teams on a couple different variables. And what I looked at was, first of all, the most important thing was your fit with the team. Your fit with the offense or defense, the coaches. But then I looked at things like cost of living. And I looked at, did the state have state income tax? Did team A have a state income tax and team B didn't have a state income tax? But fit was always the important thing. How my player fit with that particular organization. That was most important. So I believe that these NIL earnings, the state income tax situation, should be looked at and be considered by these athletes. But it shouldn't be the bottom line in their decision-making process as far as going to a school. Now, if you have aspirations, if you're a player and you have aspirations of going to play in next level, then the most important thing that you have to consider is that school going to prepare you not only to get to the pros, but to prepare you to be able to succeed once you get there. You want to be at a school that is going to have the best coaches and give you the best opportunity to get to the NFL or the NBA. The money that you earn on NIL, yeah, it's good money for sure, but it's not generational money in most cases. There's only a few athletes, the Livy Dunns of the world and the Shedeur Sanders of the world, that they're going to make millions and millions of dollars. And yeah, that money can go pretty far. A lot of these talented athletes that have the ability to play football and, let's say, basketball can make so much more money playing professionally. So getting to the right school and in the right situation to get you there is the important thing. Because a rookie contract in the NFL or the NBA, yeah, they're life-changing. There's no question. They're life-changing. But if you become even more successful and you're lucky enough to get a second contract, or like in the NBA, you get these max contracts that are $300, $400 million, that's not only life-changing, that changes your whole family's life and your kids' generational wealth that provides. That's totally different than going to a school based upon, yeah, you're going to save $5,000 or $10,000 on state income taxes. You have to think about this for the long term to get you to your goal. If your goal is to get to the NFL, to the NBA, to the NHL, that's what you have to think about. So what these players should be thinking about when they're coming out of high school or before they go into the transfer portal and they're already in school, they should start thinking about what's going to be best for their future and not just chasing the bag like a lot of them are doing, transferring every year. They're just chasing the bag. That's all. They're just trying to get as much money as they can, not thinking about what's going to happen to them if they try to go pro. So just remember that the grass is always not greener on the other side. So even though you may be going somewhere for more money, it doesn't mean that it's a better situation for you. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Dog Boy Sports and Stocks podcast, and I'll see you next time.